9 daily habits that slowly damage your brain. Did you know your brain is wearing down, little by little, every single day, without you even realizing it? Most people only start thinking about brain health once forgetfulness shows up. But the real story gets written much earlier than that, quietly, inside our everyday routines. This video is for educational purposes only and does not offer a medical diagnosis or treatment advice. If you have any health concerns, please consult a healthcare professional. Now think about this. The moment you silence your alarm and reach for your phone, the minutes you lose scrolling through social media while sipping your coffee, even that last video you watch right before falling asleep at night, all of it seems harmless enough. But neurologists have identified certain habits that, when they build up over the years, can genuinely change the way the brain functions. In this video, we're going to walk through 9 different habits, one at a time. And toward the end of the list, we'll get to a sign that most people never expect, but one that researchers pay very close attention to. So stick around until the end, because even though some of these habits look harmless on their own, their effects add up together. The brain is one of the most energy-hungry organs in the entire body. Even though it weighs a little over 2 pounds, it uses up a significant share of the body's total energy all by itself. A system that works this hard naturally needs regular maintenance, the same way an engine that runs constantly needs its oil changed on schedule. So how does that maintenance break down? Usually not through some major trauma, but through small, repeated neglect. One night of poor sleep, one indulgent dessert, or one lazy day on the couch certainly won't cause disaster on their own. But when these behaviors repeat year after year, they can build up a cumulative toll on the brain's resilience. So let's go through these habits one by one from an evidence-based point of view. Number 1, insufficient and irregular sleep. Sleep is the process during which the brain cleans itself throughout the night. While we sleep, a mechanism called the glymphatic system kicks in and clears out the metabolic waste that builds up over the course of the day. You can think of this system like a building's overnight cleaning crew. The trash that piles up during the day gets collected and hauled away in the quiet of the night. Among that waste are certain protein buildups that some research has linked to Alzheimer's disease. When sleep gets cut short, or when a person's sleep schedule keeps getting disrupted, that cleanup process may never fully finish, and over time, the waste that accumulates can make it harder for the brain to function normally. Sleep isn't just for cleanup, it also plays a critical role in consolidating memory. The information we learn during the day gets transferred from short-term memory into long-term memory while we sleep. When someone doesn't get enough sleep, that transfer process can be disrupted, and the person may struggle to recall what they learned the day before. And this effect doesn't stop after just one bad night. Chronic sleep deprivation can shorten attention span over time and negatively affect decision-making ability. The story of Robert, a 65-year-old man, is a great illustration of this. For years, Robert stayed up late watching television and got up early every morning. Over time, he started feeling constantly tired during the day and noticed small dips in his concentration. At first, he chalked it up to simply getting older. But when he realized he was struggling to focus even while spending time with his grandchildren, he decided to talk to his doctor. His doctor explained that his sleep patterns might be connected to what he was experiencing. After setting a fixed bedtime and cutting back on screen use before sleep, Robert said that within a few weeks he felt more energetic and could think more clearly. This doesn't mean the same thing will happen for everyone, but it's a good example of how sleep quality may be connected to cognitive function. Experts generally say that adults need somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep, but what matters here isn't just the number of hours, it's consistency. Going to bed at a different time every night can throw off the brain's internal clock, and that disruption has been linked, over the long run, to problems with attention, memory, and decision-making. Staying up late during the week and trying to catch up on sleep over the weekend can actually do the opposite of what you'd expect. Instead of resetting the brain's internal rhythm, it can throw that rhythm even further off balance. Number 2, excessive sugar and processed food consumption. Sugar might feel like a quick source of energy in the short term, but when it's consumed regularly and in large amounts, it can have negative effects on the blood vessels in the brain. High sugar intake causes sudden spikes and crashes in blood sugar levels, and over time, those swings can lead to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, in turn, has been linked in some research to cognitive decline, so much so that some scientists have proposed calling Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. That comparison highlights the fact that the brain, just like other organs in the body, is sensitive to insulin signaling, and when that signaling breaks down, it can directly affect brain cells. On top of that, the trans fats commonly found in processed foods can negatively affect blood vessel health. The brain is an organ that depends heavily on the small blood vessels that carry oxygen and nutrients to it, and any problems that develop in those vessels can, over time, reduce blood flow to the brain. Beyond that, the high amounts of sodium typically found in processed foods can raise blood pressure, and elevated blood pressure can place an additional long-term strain on the brain's blood vessels. In other words, a typical processed snack that combines sugar, trans fat, and sodium is a bit like the brain getting hit from three different directions at once. The story of Margaret, a retired teacher, is a wonderful example of this. For many years, Margaret got through her lunches mostly with ready-made, processed snacks, since her schedule was tight and that felt like the most practical solution. Over time, she started experiencing energy swings, and in the afternoons especially, she felt heavy fatigue and had trouble focusing. Eventually, she noticed she was struggling to think clearly throughout the day, and she said she sometimes even had trouble with simple calculations. After she changed her eating habits and started adding more vegetables and whole grains, she said she felt more energetic and that the heavy afternoon fatigue had largely faded away. This experience doesn't guarantee the same outcome for everyone, but it does illustrate the connection between diet and mental clarity. Number 3, staying sedentary for long periods of time. The hours we spend sitting throughout the day can pose a risk not just to our muscles, but to our brain as well. Physical movement raises the heart rate, which helps support blood flow to the brain and makes it easier to deliver oxygen and nutrients. The longer a person stays sedentary, the weaker this natural support mechanism can become, and the brain may end up without the blood flow it needs. Research shows that people who exercise regularly tend to have better preserved function in a brain region called the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory. The hippocampus plays a critical role in learning new information and forming memories. A lack of exercise has been linked to this region shrinking over time. Interestingly, some studies suggest that even regular walking, though not as intense as vigorous exercise, may help preserve hippocampal volume, which shows that small steps can make a difference even without a daily trip to the gym. The effect of movement on the brain isn't limited to blood flow alone. Certain growth factors released during exercise can support the formation of new nerve cells and help strengthen existing neural connections. Because of this, physical inactivity may indirectly affect not just the circulatory system, but the brain's own capacity to renew itself. The situation of James, an office worker, sums this up well. James sits at his desk for more than 8 hours a day, and even though he felt tired by evening, he noticed a mentally foggy feeling as well. He noticed his attention drifting during meetings, and he struggled to follow even simple topics. Once he added daily walks and started taking short breaks to stand up from his desk during lunch, he noticed that fogginess fade, and even his coworkers commented that he seemed more energetic and focused. This is, of course, one individual's experience, but it offers a valuable example for understanding the possible effects of physical activity on the brain. Number 4, chronic unmanaged stress. Short-term stress is actually a natural defense mechanism in the body. In the face of danger, it sharpens our focus and helps us make quick decisions. But when stress continues for a long time, a hormone called cortisol can remain elevated for extended periods. High cortisol levels can, over time, have negative effects on brain regions linked to memory and learning. Some research shows that in people who are chronically exposed to high cortisol levels, the volume of the hippocampus can shrink over time. Chronic stress can also disrupt sleep quality, affect appetite, and weaken the immune system, all of which are factors that indirectly affect brain health. A stressed mind often can't fully rest through the night either, and that can deepen the sleep problems we talked about earlier. In this way, stress and poor sleep can turn into a vicious cycle that feeds into each other. Interestingly, studies on stress management techniques show that practices like meditation or breathing exercises can help soften the body's stress response. People who regularly practice breathing exercises or short mindfulness sessions have been observed to have a more controlled cortisol response during moments of stress. This doesn't mean stress needs to be eliminated entirely, since it's a natural part of life. What matters is being able to manage the mark stress leaves on the body. At this point, we're getting close to the sign we really want to highlight, because even though stress is harmful on its own, its effect becomes even more layered when combined with the next habit. Number 5, the loss of social connection and loneliness. Social interaction can be thought of as a kind of natural exercise that keeps the brain constantly stimulated. During a conversation, the brain simultaneously carries out many different functions: listening, pulling information from memory, interpreting emotional cues, and forming a response. This is actually a fairly complex mental workout, and when it's repeated regularly, it can strengthen the connections between different regions of the brain. As social isolation increases, that natural stimulation can decrease, and certain regions of the brain may end up being used less. Research shows that older adults who maintain regular social interaction tend to show better outcomes in terms of cognitive decline compared to those who live alone and have limited social contact. This doesn't mean loneliness is, by itself, a cause of disease, but it is a strong finding that suggests social bonds may play a protective role in brain health. What's more, loneliness isn't just an emotional burden, it's a condition with measurable physical effects as well. Chronic loneliness has even been linked to elevated markers of inflammation. The story of Dorothy, whose social circle shrank after retirement, illustrates this well. Dorothy used to interact with many people daily at work, but after retiring, she began spending most of her days alone. At first, she found this relaxing, since she had worked at a demanding pace for years. But as the months passed, she noticed she was becoming more withdrawn, and there were even stretches of days where she didn't have a single extended conversation with anyone. After she joined a community center and started attending weekly gatherings, she said she felt more lively and mentally more active. She even said that the discussions and exchanges she had with her new friends felt like they were restarting her mind. Number 6, constant multitasking and excessive screen use. One of the most common habits of modern life is trying to juggle more than one task at the same time. Checking phone notifications while working or texting while watching a video forces the brain to constantly split its attention. Over time, this can weaken the brain's capacity for deep, focused thinking. During multitasking, the brain doesn't actually perform two tasks at once. Instead, it makes rapid switches back and forth between tasks. That constant switching can lead to mental fatigue and has been linked over the long run to a shortened attention span. Some researchers note that people who constantly multitask can show small but consistent declines in the speed and accuracy of how they process information, compared to people who focus on one task at a time. On top of that, too much screen time can disrupt sleep patterns as well, since the blue light emitted by screens can delay the release of the body's natural sleep hormone. That brings us right back to our first point: sleep. As you can see, these habits aren't isolated from one another, they form an interconnected web instead. Constantly checking notifications, endless short video loops, and the constant search for instant gratification can, over time, dull the brain's capacity for patience and deep thinking. Some experts suggest that deliberately setting aside screen-free hours can help the mind regain its capacity for deep focus. Number 7, not drinking enough water. About 70% of the brain is made up of water, and that number shows just how sensitive the brain is to dehydration. Even mild dehydration can lead to symptoms like difficulty concentrating, headaches, and mental fatigue. Over the long term, chronic low-grade dehydration is thought to place a small but constant strain on cognitive performance. Interestingly, many people are already mildly dehydrated before they even notice they're thirsty, because thirst is a signal the body sends late. In older adults especially, the sense of thirst can weaken over time, which can leave them more vulnerable to dehydration. Some studies have shown that even mild dehydration can cause small drops in performance on short-term memory tests and attention tests. This shows that regular, mindful water intake matters not just when you feel thirsty, but spread out consistently throughout the day. Simple habits, like drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning, or making a point of drinking water regularly between meals, can help the brain stay more resilient against dehydration. Number 8, smoking and excessive alcohol consumption. Smoking narrows blood vessels, which can reduce blood flow to the brain and make it harder to deliver oxygen. Long-term smoking has been linked to an increased risk of stroke and to cognitive decline. The chemicals in cigarette smoke can damage blood vessel walls over time, and that damage can affect even the smallest vessels in the brain, the very vessels that play a critical role in carrying blood to the regions responsible for memory and attention. Alcohol, especially when consumed heavily and regularly, has been linked to shrinkage in the brain regions responsible for memory. Excessive alcohol consumption can also disrupt the body's absorption of certain important vitamins, particularly B vitamins, which are essential for the healthy functioning of nerve cells. Because of this, alcohol's effects on the brain can be both direct and indirect. What these two habits have in common is that their effects usually show up slowly and quietly. A person may go for years without noticing any obvious change until the accumulated effects finally become visible. Because of this, talking with a healthcare professional about cutting back or quitting can be beneficial for long-term brain health. Recognizing that the process of quitting can be difficult and seeking support for it can be a far more effective path than trying to face it alone. Number 9, ignoring hearing loss. Now we've arrived at the sign we mentioned at the very beginning of the video, the one that most people never see coming. At first glance, hearing loss seems like it's only about the ears. But research in recent years has shown that untreated hearing loss may be linked to cognitive decline. There are a few possible explanations for this. First, a brain dealing with hearing loss may have to spend extra resources just to make sense of sounds, and that can leave less capacity available for other cognitive tasks. You could say the brain operates on a limited energy budget, and when a large share of that budget goes toward decoding sound, there's less left over for functions like memory and attention. Second, people who struggle to hear tend to gradually withdraw from social settings, which can trigger the same social isolation effect we talked about earlier. Someone who has trouble following conversations in a crowded room may start avoiding those kinds of settings altogether, and that can lead to less social interaction and, in turn, less stimulation for the brain. Third, some researchers suggest there may be a direct link between hearing loss and structural changes in the brain. When the brain regions involved in hearing aren't stimulated enough, those regions may gradually shrink over time. The story of Henry, a retired engineer, sums this up nicely. For years, Henry brushed off his family's reminders to speak up a little, treating his hearing loss as just a normal part of getting older. Over time, he started avoiding crowded places and kept his phone calls short, and he sometimes sat quietly through family gatherings, trying to hide the fact that he couldn't follow the conversation. After getting a hearing test done and starting to use a hearing aid, he said he returned to his social life and felt mentally sharper as well. He described, with a smile, how conversations with his grandchildren became enjoyable again, and how he could once again pick up on the subtle jokes and nuances he had been missing for so long. This is a striking example of just how deeply hearing health is intertwined with brain health, more than most of us would ever assume. Now that we've made it this far, you've probably noticed something all 9 habits have in common. None of them causes sudden disaster on its own. Instead, they build up quietly over the years. Sleep, diet, movement, stress, social connection, attention, hydration, smoking and alcohol, and hearing, these 9 areas aren't really independent boxes. They're more like links in a connected chain. A disruption in one usually affects the others, the same way poor sleep can raise stress, or social isolation can feed into physical inactivity. The good news is that most of these habits can be positively influenced through small, consistent changes. You don't need to make some sweeping, drastic life overhaul. Research shows that small, steady steps can add up over time and create meaningful differences. Getting regular sleep, eating a balanced diet, staying physically active, maintaining social connections, practicing focused attention, drinking enough water, staying away from smoking and excessive alcohol, and paying attention to your hearing health, all of these can be simple but effective steps towards supporting the brain's long-term health. One of the most striking points to come out of this research is this: untreated hearing loss shows an unexpectedly strong connection among the factors linked to the risk of cognitive decline. That single statistic is a reminder of just how important the small things we tend to overlook in daily life can actually be. Maybe the simplest solution starts with a hearing check we've put off for years, or a doctor's appointment we keep postponing. The information shared in this video does not constitute a definitive diagnosis or treatment recommendation. If you have any concerns, please consult a healthcare professional. So, which of these 9 habits do you think takes up the most space in your own life? We'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Maybe there are small but valuable tips we can all learn from each other. If you found this video helpful, sharing it with the people around you might help them notice these small but important habits too. And if you'd like to see more content on brain health, healthy living, and topics like these, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.